so
You
you're
don't
out.
play head to head.
Oh, so it's just points.
It's just points.
Probably not.
Yeah. I just feel like a little kid sitting at the table.
Good evening and welcome to the September 5th City Council meeting. If you would join me for a moment of silence in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance. Okay. Ms. Orlovsky, roll call, please.
Michelle Volk.
Here.
Luke Hellier. John Bermel.
Here.
Dan Wolter.
Here.
Joshua Lee.
Great. We'll move on to item number 3, citizens' comments. This is an opportunity for those to address the council for up to 3 minutes about any pressing issues that may not be on the agenda. Does not look like we have any citizens' comments tonight. We'll move on to item 4. Any additional agenda information, Mr. Miller?
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
Okay, and we will now move into number 5, presentation, the Fire Department Quarterly Report. And I will turn this over to our Fire Chief, Mike Beyer.
Sorry, gotta go get back to the start. Good evening, Mayor, Council members. I'd like to present the second quarter report for the Fire Department for 2023, and I'll start with our mission statement. The Lakeville Fire Department is dedicated to serving the community through the protection of lives and property by providing public safety education and professional emergency response. Looking at fire calls from 21 to 23, you can see the second quarter as far as they're pretty consistent as numbers, and then to the right you can see by quarter, by month. And I'll just highlight June of 23 was our highest call volume ever as a department with 300 in the month of June.
Wow.
And then breaking down the 841 incidents by stations, as far as primary stations, you can see duty crew responded to 447 calls, followed by Station 2 at 115, Station 1, 104, Station 3, 85, and Station 4 at 73, and there were 17 officer-only calls. And then the graph to the right is just showing the multiple calls in progress. So you can see 2 calls in progress occurred 142 times, 24 times for 3 calls, and then 4 calls in progress 4 times in that same quarter. And I'll just highlight a couple of the incidents that we had during the second quarter. So the fire that you see the top 2 slides was actually started on the shed next to the home and then spread to the home, but fortunately it was just exterior damage to the home and nothing interior but some light smoke. And then the bottom 2 pictures are actually from our drone team, but we had a water rescue where 3 individuals went out in their boat with ice still on the lake that was breaking apart. They had some engine troubles and then they couldn't get out, so then we had to go out and pull them back to the boat launch. But we used a drone to fly out, locate them, make sure that they're okay, and then sent the watercraft to go out and then pull them back. And just break down on the 841 calls that were in the second quarter, you can see 563 of those are rescue or EMS, which is about 65% of our call volume. 121 good intent calls. Of those 121, 95 of those are canceled en route, meaning that we were responding to whatever that might have been and then we were not needed, so we were canceled. 76 false alarms, 46 hazardous conditions, 21 fire calls, I'll break those out in a second, and then 14 service calls.
Can I ask a quick question then?
Absolutely.
From your previous graph where you showed the number of multiple calls?
Yes,
That would not include the calls for intent that were canceled, correct?
correct.
So those were, when it was 4 calls in progress, it was 4 calls that you needed to respond to.
Correct. So not only, and a good example would be the duty crew may be on a call and then we're paging out a secondary station or third station to respond to that emergency.
I just wanted to make sure that when you were putting that graph up, it didn't have any of the intent numbers.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Of the 21 fires, 7 of those were building fires. You can see the other one, the one I will draw your attention to is the cooking fire confined, so there's 3 of those. And what that means is that there was a fire predominantly in the oven of the stove, and as long as we keep that oven closed, that the fire is contained is what it is, how it's defined, is that it never left the container or the oven in this case. And then of the 563 medicals, I won't go through all of them. The one I want to do highlight is the motor vehicle accidents with injuries. We've seen an uptick in the injury side of that. Typically, we see quite a few accidents, but normally there's pretty minor injuries. But we've seen an increase in the injuries and motor vehicle accidents in the same motion. And you can see the one water rescue is the one that I highlighted in the pictures. Looking at fire inspections in the second quarter, so we had 228 commercial inspections completed, 43 plan reviews. These are new or remodeling businesses that we have to look at the fire alarm sprinkler systems, 11 new child care, foster care, 11 burn permits, and then 34 food truck inspections. And you can see the pictures across the bottom. The one I'll draw your attention to is with the lime green paint in it. What we're seeing more and more in not only commercial but in residential is families are setting up kind of a cooking area, if you will, in the garages of their home. So you can see that's quite the extensive cooking setup that they have of a couple burners in there with propane and then the oils that they're using to cook whatever their foods are. And just give you an update because we're almost done with the third quarter, but just to see where we stand today. Currently, we're at about 22,205 calls as of today. In the third quarter, there were 600 incidents, and I have those broken out by stations. And then again, that multiple call in progress, so 2 calls are 109 times, and 3 calls, and then 4 calls. And looking at second and third quarter, that's about 20% of the 600 or the 841 calls. And then response time, so when we look at the 90th percentile, this is exactly that, and these are all emergent, all incidents and then emergent only, so we don't count anything that was canceled en route or that we slowed our response, whether it was routine or we went emergency and then slowed a routine. Our goal is call processing time, so this is a time that our dispatch center handles a call is 2 minutes. On average, they're around that 1 minute, 1:30, depending on if it's a medical or a fire. And then our turnout time and response times that you can see there, so we're looking for that. The first numbers, the 2 minute and the 8 minute is paired towards duty crew, so that engine 5 is our duty crew response. And you can see they're slightly below 3, they're at 2:53, so just below 3 minutes. So we continue to work in improving that. And then their overall response time is 11:30. When we look at stations, we're looking for an 8-minute turnout from the stations and a 12-minute response time. You can see we're at about an 8:30 for turnout per station, and we're just at 14 minutes, 30 seconds on response. Fire prevention visits. So I won't go through all of those, but the middle picture shows the fire extinguisher training that we did with all the middle schools last spring. And we brought in an extra firefighters, extra trainers to get through all of the middle schools, safety camps that we were part of, elementary school festivals that usually end the season for them. And then the Hope Kids event at Branch Farms and Dew Days and Apple Valley Parade. Training, so just to highlight some of the topics that we've covered in the second and now the third quarter of this year for training: live burn, pumping and aerial operations. So the picture you see to the left is actually everybody had to go through and climb the 75-foot ladder, go through the operations and setup of the ladder. Auto extrication. The driver FAO training was our class of 22 completing their driving requirements so that they can start driving the vehicles as far as to calls and from calls. Physical ability tests, we actually start that this month. And then we got to go to Farmington for some thermal image camera training that Farmington hosted, and then we hosted a fire officer training class that involves Apple Valley, Lakeville, and Farmington. Recruitment, so just to show you a timeline that we went through, so a special thanks to HR for all their efforts and help that they assisted us in this process, but At the end, we hired 4 new firefighters, 3 at Station 2 and 1 at Station 3. And then recruitment retention. So it's a very busy slide with a lot of lines on it. The bottom green line is actually retired firefighters. The red line is resigned, so less than 20 years. And you can see my bullet there of 50% of our firefighters are leaving prior to their 7-year mark. And then the blue line is our hiring of firefighters. If you look at overall from 2013 to 23, we've hired 75 firefighters and we've lost 74 in that same window. So we're +1. And this year we're seeing probably our highest retiree. So we've already had one gentleman that we had here last week. We have about another 3 more that are coming up here shortly. And just to provide an update, the SAFER grant, so they have announced a few awards. August 11th and August 25th were the last rounds that they've announced. Those are for recruitment retention, not necessarily for hiring firefighters, so we're still waiting for that. We are at the completion point or nearing the completion point for our station study. We did hire a fire inspector. He will start later this month. And then as I mentioned, we hired the 4 firefighters, and actually tonight is their first night of training. And just give you an update on Panaprog, we completed 44 food trucks that are specific to Panaprog. We did provide extra crews as far as for downtown events. So we had a medical response crew that was active on Thursday and Friday. And then our drone team was also assisting PD on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And then the number that everybody likes to hear is a waffle breakfast. We set a record there with 2,152 plates that were served. That's not necessarily waffles, that's the plates that were served. So it's probably north of 2,500 waffles that we served in that morning.
Oh, you can put more than 1 waffle on a plate?
I was going to ask.
Well, people will come back for seconds. So we don't.
Bring their plate forward. Oh, gotcha, okay.
Just to recognize our partnership with the Lakeville Public Safety Foundation, some of the events that have occurred, Firehouse Bingo, Bourbon and Cigars, and then they had hosted their golf tournament at Brackets, Lights, and Sirens Golf Tournament. That completes my second quarter report. I want to thank you for your support to the Lakeville Fire Department, and I will stand for any questions.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Any questions? Yeah, John.
Just when you showed the slide with calls for service, and in 2023 they were significantly higher than the previous year, is that distributed among all the call types, or are you seeing a rise in specific call types?
Vehicle accidents with injuries is one that we've noted that is climbing a little bit higher than normal, but overall we're up 10% compared to last year in call volume.
Okay.
Question about the response time slide that
Yes.
you had. The turnout time for duty crews is significantly less.
Correct.
It seems like the overall response time decreases significantly, but not as much as the turnout time. Is that
You're talking their response time?
the total
Total response,
response?
yep.
Right. The degree to which that decreases on the duty crew seems to be less of a drop.
Correct.
Any thoughts as to why that difference? I mean, the turnout time is faster, but
Yes.
for some reason, the overall response time is not as.
It's the distance travel that they're going. So
Oh, that's right.
during the daytime or during weekends and days where they're staffed at Station 4. So wherever that call is, they're responding from there, and that's,
Driving farther.
they're covering the entire city
Right.
is
Okay.
the issue, so.
Thank you.
Can't wait till we resolve that.
Any other questions? Thank you, Chief. Appreciate it. All right, moving on to item number 6, consent agenda. Any items of note, Mr. Miller?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Very short consent agenda tonight, but a few items I would like to point out. Item 6D is the approval of the Convention and Visitors Bureau 2024 budget. Just wanted to thank the CVB and the Chamber for administering that program for us. Item 6E is a donation from Bobby Morgan. This is $500 that they are donating, and that's going to go toward fire department to provide animal oxygen masks when they respond to those incidents. And then lastly, 6F is a parking license agreement. For a long time, there's been a need for additional parking in the downtown, and Wells Fargo Bank along with Tina Goodroad, our Community Development Director, have negotiated an agreement that will allow us to use those spots during non-banking hours. And that's been a long time coming, and it'll solve some problems downtown.
Very good. Any items that those in the council want to discuss? Not, I'll take a motion for the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda passes. We'll move on to item number 7, resolution approving the preliminary 2024 property tax levy and 2024 preliminary budget, and I'll turn it over to our finance director, Ms. Stahl.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. First off, I want to extend thanks to the staff and the council for all their hard work on these budgets. It is a very intensive process and starts back in May, so we're reaching the culmination of a lot of work. So we have had, there's a few changes since the work session from last week. We did add the staff that council directed us to, so that was the 2 additional police officers, 2 streets, and 1 facilities position. There was some reduction in debt, and then we added a contingency amount. So those are the changes from what you were presented last week. The resulting change in the levy that we're looking at then with those changes is an increase of 10.8%. 2%, roughly 2% is their debt levy. That's due to the referendum that was passed in November of 2021. So with this increase, we're looking at an impact to the median value home, which is now $446,000 home, is $92 a year. So 37% of that $92, or $37 of that is the levy increase, and $55 of that 92 is the market value impact. So just a reminder, this is preliminary. We'll continue fine-tuning and working through this to try and lower it before the final adoption in December. And so, and just another reminder, it is state law that we need to certify this to the county by September 30th, and it's our preliminary levy amount, the budget, and then setting our public hearing date. So, and a reminder too, this is our preliminary levy. It's what's used in the county's property tax statements that they send out in November that the homeowners receive. So we will be holding our public budget meeting, which is open for public comment on December 4th at 6:30 p.m. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Okay, council, questions, comments? Okay, if not, I'll take a motion to approve. John?
I move to approve the preliminary 2024 property tax levy and preliminary 2024 budget.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any other discussion about the motion? Okay, I'll just add that the council, I think, had a pretty robust and broad conversation at our work session, and I think this is a good opportunity for us to look at investing in some key areas of the city, and I think that we all kind of came to that agreement. And I'll just echo my predecessor for the last 6 years who always said, this is just a preliminary levy, and we always hope that the staff can figure out a way to trim that down before the final. So that one was for you, Doug. But that was the rest of I had. But I will then now take a roll call. Ms. Orlovsky, please.
Volk,
Aye.
Hellier,
Aye.
Bermel, Walter,
Aye.
Lee.
Aye. All right, motion fails. Thank you. We'll move on to items 8 and 9, unfinished and new business. Anything council wanted to raise? Okay, moving on to item 10, announcements. Our next regular meeting is September 18th here in the City Hall at 6:30. Our next work session is September 25th at the water treatment facility. And with that, I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned.